Why do siblings fight? Sibling conflict is a tale as old as time. William and Harry, Liam and Noel, Kim and Courtney. But feuding siblings doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be enemies for life. And actually, conflict between siblings is often impulsive rather than deliberate. It usually comes from a place of insecurity and immaturity. Because even the most cherished children struggle to understand that love is infinite. So most feuding is based on resentment of having to share that love and attention. Conflict between siblings is developmentally normal, and research shows that it can happen up to 8 times an hour. Now you might hear that and think, oh well that's fine because mine only do it, once an hour. Or you might think, well hang on a minute, it's happening to my children like 20, 30, 40 times an hour. Do not panic. I'd argue that for me, sometimes it can feel like my children are the best of friends, and other times they are fighting 800 times a day and there is no in between. Whatever is happening in your household, we're going to unpick it here. Is sibling rivalry ever a good thing? Although it doesn't feel particularly pleasant, the way that we navigate it with our children can actually have a really positive outcome on developing important life skills. Disagreements teach our children that we all have different perspectives, and that's going to be something that's really important as our children grow. With support, our children can learn how to stand up for what they believe in and develop the skills they'll need for conflict resolution and persuasion too. For me, the biggest positive is that sibling rivalry shows that your children feel safe in your home. In some families, siblings feel so dependent on each other because they are not as comfortable with their adults. So they're not going to fall out with the person that they depend on. If your children are fighting, it's a good sign. It shows that your children feel safe enough around you that they know they can fall out with their sibling because they don't have to constantly rely on them. Why do siblings argue and fall out? There are lots and lots of reasons why siblings might fall out. And as parents, the more that we can unpick it and work out what's really triggering the behaviour, the easier it can be for us to deal with and for our children to move forward from. They might fall out because they're bored and it's fun to pick at their sibling. They might fall out or have some sort of conflict because they've got an unmet need. Maybe they're tired or they're hungry, or it could be because of jealousy. Sometimes it can also be because they've spent too much time together and they just start to rub each other up the wrong way. In some families, and this is the case in mine, you might find that one child is more dominant than the other, and they're quite often the instigator in these situations. Sometimes these children will trigger the other for the reaction. And again, that's really normal, but it's just something for us as parents to be aware of. We don't want to be comparing them or kind of putting the blame on one of them, but we can recognise that ourselves. Other times you might feel like it could be either child to blame or that they're both as bad as each other, I've heard parents say. Either way, we need to stay impartial and try to avoid taking sides. I'm often asked, can fighting between siblings affect self-esteem? Sibling comparison is very different to conflict between siblings. So if you're using language like, oh, your brother's sitting really nicely, that's a comparison. And those are the things that have been found to have a negative impact on a child's self-esteem. So it's really important that we're mindful when we're handling these sibling fallouts. It's okay for them to fall out. It's our job to help them navigate their way through it, but we don't want to be using language that implies that one child is always at fault or it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this child's behaviour. So I would just warn against using these opportunities as like a healthy competition. In this video, we've looked at why siblings fight, why it's not the end of the world, and the impact that it can have on our children. In the next video, I'm going to be giving you some tips on how you can help.